Alright guys, today we're going to install a dado blade on your table saw, and it's an easy process to master, but if you're new to woodworking or you just want a quick refresher on how to install a dado stack, we'll go over the finer points. Stick around. Well, I use a dado blade all the time in the workshop, and I use them to make tenons and rabbets and half lap joints. Not a day goes by in the shop where I don't do at least some of my operations with a dado blade. I use a dado so much, in fact, that I took the time to do a back-to-back 2 table saw setup, and we'll link up to that video if you're interested in doing a 2 table saw setup in your shop. But today I just want to show you how to do a basic dado blade install on a traditional table saw. So obviously unplug your saw before you do any maintenance on it, but we'll need to switch from a standard throat plate to a little bit wider dado throat plate, and that'll just make sure that everything's covered and you're not exposing any more of the blade than you need to. The basic idea with dado blades is there's a left and a right blade, and you have to put those on the saw in a specific way to get good flat bottom cuts. There's also a series of chippers that you'll use. The standard thickness will be a 1/8 inch chipper, but the nice sets also come with undersized chippers like a 3/32 for plywood cuts or an undersized 1/16 chipper. So take off the arbor washer and your standard ripping blade that you might have had on your saw. And one key point is when you're using a dado blade, you never ever use a riving knife. And so if your table saw is equipped with a true riving knife, make sure that you take that out. You also wouldn't use splitters or anything that's attached topside to the dado blade insert or the ZCI, the zero clearance insert. Anything like that that sits in the kerf of the cut, you obviously won't use with a dado set. So to get started, install the first blade, and it's a little bit of a trick to figure out which blade you start with. And the trick is to look at it on the end like this, and here I see that the bevel teeth are angled like this. So the tip is on this far outside edge. And that's how I want to install this blade for good flat bottom cuts. The teeth, of course, need to point towards me as I start installing the series of chippers. And the key thing here is that as you install each chipper, you want to make sure that the carbide are not overlapped. So the teeth from one blade need to be offset compared to the teeth to the next blade. That's particularly important between the outer blades and the adjacent chipper. In other words, you don't want to have the teeth overlap this way because the carbide is actually wider right at the teeth there. And so instead you want to have the chipper teeth nestle between pairs of teeth on the outer blade. And then just keep stacking up chipper blades until you establish the width of dado you want. And for these additional blades, it's really not that critical where they go. Just make sure that the teeth of the chippers don't actually align. Usually you'll wind up with 4 chipper blades between the 2 outer blades for a full 3/4 inch stack. And here again, carefully align that outside chipper between 2 carbide teeth of the outside blade. Now one thing to consider is if you want to use the arbor washer that you typically would use with a single kerf blade. And I'll refer you to the owner's manual of your table saw to see if they have any specific advice on that. But the bottom line is you want to make sure that when you're threading the arbor nut onto the arbor with the dado blade, that it fully threads onto that arbor and even has threads sticking out the other side. If you can't do that with the arbor washer on, I recommend that you omit the arbor washer and use just the nut to install that dado stack. In running dado blades for over 20 years now, I've only had one come loose on me once. It made kind of a clanking noise, and I realized that the arbor nut had loosened up, and I realized my mistake. I used the arbor washer, but it didn't give me enough threads to fully thread that arbor nut into position. So don't make that same mistake, and if you don't have the room, just don't use the arbor washer. So this is what the dado blade looks like when it's installed correctly, and it's worth double checking that the tips of these outer blades are highest at their outside edge. So it's true over here as well. The very peak of this blade should be highest at its outside edge. This is what the arbor nut should look like when it's installed. You should see a few of those arbor threads coming out the side. And you'll need this dado insert. And when you're shopping for a table saw, one feature I really look for now is a lockable throat plate. Any design that lets you lock this down so it can't lift up in regular use is a great safety feature. Remember to thank your favorite content creators by subscribing to their channel, give them a thumbs up, or just drop them a line in the comment section. It's a great way to show your support, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Alright guys, there you go. All the details on installing a dado blade for your table saw. Do remember that point about offsetting the carbide teeth. It'll help you avoid damage on your dado blade, but it'll also lead to more accurate cuts. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.